Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right. I am John Palacio.
And I'm Marlene Cuellar, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Yep, it is a beautiful Wednesday morning out. The birds are chirping, the sun is out, and everybody is out working out.
Yeah.
Because the weather is okay. But let's see what the weather folks are saying there at the National Met Service.
Right.
To tell us exactly what's going on. Michelle Smith is the forecaster on duty. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
And how are you?
I am fine, and you?
I am very good. I'll tell you what, I feel like $1 million with like $2 right now. But that's just the way it is. Nonetheless, it's looking beautiful. We've got a beautiful country and the weather is lovely. Can we start with the general situation?
Okay. Generally fair conditions will prevail over most areas today.
What does that say for our 24-hour forecast?
All right, we can expect sunny skies for the most part during the daytime and partly cloudy skies tonight. Showers or thunderstorms will be isolated except for a few more over the south tonight.
Okay, well, I wouldn't want to say that's some news. We're so used to it. But nonetheless, what will this say about our winds for today?
All right, winds we can expect from the east to southeast at about 10 to 20 knots, so winds will be a bit strong today.
Oh, wow. That means it's going to be cool in the temperatures, right?
Somewhat. It depends on what you refer to as cool.
Uh-huh. Give us your version of cool or your version of the highs for today.
All right. High temperatures remain in the higher 80s for the coast, so we can expect about 88 Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
And then inland, we can expect about 96 Fahrenheit, maybe higher as we move closer to the border.
Wow.
And up in the hills, about 85 Fahrenheit.
All right. And for tonight's lows?
Tonight, not so low. It will be another warm night. We can expect about 82 Fahrenheit along the coast, 75 Fahrenheit inland, and about 72 Fahrenheit up in the hills.
And while it's going to be very hot, while we could see this heat coming on, do we have any advisors for residents anywhere?
Right, yeah, for residents inland, especially where we expect those higher 90s, they're advised to stay hydrated and avoid outdoor activities as much as possible. So stay cool, stay hydrated.
Oh, definitely. They should stay hydrated indeed. And our extended forecast, what should we expect over the next few days or over the next 24?
All right, for the next 24, we expect a few showers and isolated thunderstorms to develop around the country, but especially over the south tomorrow night. Yeah. And then Friday, we see a similar pattern, but it'll be more focused on the inland areas and the southern areas, of course. I mean, the south is always getting something.
I know, right? I listened to the word, of course, just know. But forecaster Smith, thank you so very much.
Before you go, sorry,
there we
just
go.
remember, we do have, hello?
Hello?
Yes,
right.
the tropical storm Arthur, what's the update with that?
Oh, Arthur became post-tropical yesterday, so that means it's out somewhere in the Atlantic, very far away from the Caribbean.
Okay. So it was just a scare to remind us that the hurricane season is approaching.
Yes, approaching very quickly.
Yeah, very.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much for that update.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
You have a great day today.
You too.
All right.
And there you go. Now you know exactly what to expect when it comes to the weather. Stay hydrated. It's going to be very hot, especially in the coastal area. Inland areas, actually.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hot. So now we know exactly what to expect. Mark?
That's right. And remember to stay hydrated, stay out of the sun if you can.
Yeah.
You want to keep that in mind, especially when it is so warm. All right, we're going to get moving into our eye-opener for this morning. Of course, this is our moment for a little bit of motivation to get the day started right. And our eye-opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Our past can read like a document on what not to do. but we have the present and or future to make a change. When we look back at the past, knowing what we know now, we often find it difficult to understand how we made the mistakes we made. This is because once we learn new information, it is nearly impossible to re-enter the headspace we were in before we learned that information. In order to live more peacefully with the past, it helps to remember that once we know better, we tend to do better. Prior to knowing, we generally do our best. And while it's true that from the perspective of the present, our best doesn't always seem good enough, we can at least give our past selves the benefit of the doubt. We did our best with what knowledge we had. Beyond this, we serve the greater good most effectively by not dwelling on the past. Instead, reining our energy and knowledge into our present actions. It is here, in this moment, that we create our reality and ourselves anew with our current knowledge and information.
Sweet. I tell you what, it's what for me, preach mostly every day. We always learn from the things that we had before.
Yeah.
And many a times people say we waste time back then. You're not wasting time, you're being educated. It puts you in a position to learn exactly how to maneuver when it comes to the present and, of course, the future. So you know exactly how to look, or where the nooks and crannies are that you shouldn't be in, or the things that you learned from then, you know exactly how now to put forward. This is the reason for me, Marlene, that I really and truly enjoy sitting down with the elders, because they can reflect to where or to what had happened. And they teach you now how to deal with your present. And from that teaching is when it will come to mind as to how I will deal with my future. This is very important because our past can read like a document on what not to do. But we have the present and our future to make a change. I love it, I love it, I love it.
Yeah, I didn't know how I felt about that first sentence, what not to do.
Yeah.
You know, because I think when you look back, I don't know how much of your life you would do differently, but there's a lot that I would probably keep. And I'll tell you why,
yeah.
even the bad things.
Yeah.
Because what the eye-opener focuses on is really the truth. Those are the learning experiences, the steep learning curves, or the test that came before the lesson, whatever you want to use, whatever your favorite quote is.
Yeah.
That kind of gets you to where you are today. And so a lot of times, I think we look back with regret rather than just appreciation. That you can be able to say, I survived that. You know, I got to experience what happens when I do this, and now I know I perhaps need to do it differently, approach it differently. And so I think that there's a lot of appreciation you can have for what you have been able to overcome so far. It also is, if you think about it, kind of an acknowledgement of your strength today. So even when you feel weak, if you look back and you think of the things that you've been able to overcome, and we all have, everybody has that unique story that includes obstacles and challenges and low times. And when we look back on them, we can say to ourselves, man, I'm a lot stronger than I think I am, than I thought I was, than I think I'll ever be, because you know, back then I didn't think I'd survive it, and you did. And so I think it's always a really, really great tool that you can use to give yourself that extra boost.
Definitely.
But really, you know, it's so important when you put it all into perspective. And the benefit of looking back is that you have the bigger picture to look at, and you know what the outcome is going to be. And that's what oftentimes we struggle with in the present. You may not know what any particular choice is going to, how it's going to pan out, or what consequences or successes you may make, you may have with the choices that you make. And someday you'll look back and you'll be critical of that decision as well. But it's just being able to learn from the things that you've experienced before. And I think it allows you to have a lot more trust in yourself.
Definitely.
When you assess the choices you've made before,
You know,
even the bad ones.
Definitely. The success of one today came from the struggles they had yesterday. And the struggle they had yesterday was actually a part of their learning process to put them to where they are right now. They're billionaires like Jeff Bezos, who is the president and CEO of Amazon. These guys, they've got they had their bad days. But this is where I want to go with this. There's some folks right now would tell you, man, I don't want to look back on my past. I don't want to look back on my past because it was brutal. It hurt. It hurts right now. But you know what? What they do for others in speaking about it is educating others and allowing others to bear some strength from what had happened back then. Yeah. So I say, sometimes a story is very hard to tell because of the past, but there's so many lives you're saving by stating that story, by telling somebody that story. It is a part of the learning process, what had happened. It is a part of the growing process, what had happened. So if there is something to say, or if there's something to think about, even though it might be hard, think about the lives that you're saving. Think about the mentality you're bringing in somebody else so they know exactly what to do. And this is how I feel about the Eye Opener. This one, today, I had a carrot here.
You say that all the time.
I'm taking that one today. There are lives you could be touching with that one today.
You can take it with your mind. You have the experience in the past of hearing it and discussing it, reading it.
Love it. I love it.
But no, I totally agree. I think it's always, we're in such a strange time.
Yeah.
And I think we can never say that enough. We are all, I had a conversation yesterday where I realized that other people kind of feel just the same way we do. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know if there'll be a second wave, what the second wave will look like. We don't know how we're going to survive this devastation to our economy. We don't know what's going to happen with the people who have been employed. If you are unemployed, you don't know where you're going to get your next job or your next source of finance. There are so many things that can really weigh us down. And I think, and there's nothing in our past to prepare us for it. Yeah. But what we are doing is preparing our own history lesson of how we survived this pandemic. And I think that's the part of the eye opener that stands out to me. Yeah. We can only do our best, and our best really means that we are looking at ourselves from a wholesome perspective, whether it's just taking care of your health or being safe in your practices, and also acknowledging that you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself either, because your mental health is so fragile well.
It is.
Because living in uncertainty is not easy. So, I think that's kind of where I see it. Later on, you're going to talk to your grandkids and about what life was like during the pandemic. You'll be able to tell them stories like we used to hear as children when there was the devaluation, how hard it was, or after Hattie, how hard it was. And things like that. And we couldn't understand it. Well, we're having a real life example of that, and we're going to share that lesson someday. And so all you can do in this present, because there's nothing in our past to help us, just do your best.
Just do your best. I really and truly love and appreciate the way you sum that up. Indeed. I know, I hope Yaz come and I have to tell no grand pick nothing. Yaz, I don't want no grandbaby right now. I'm just saying.
I mean, eventually, John, be real.
I'm just saying. It is a Wednesday. We have fun on Wednesdays too.
I don't know. I feel for your children. That's not your choice.
Of course. But that was a wonderful eye opener, and there's so many things you could take away from this one. All right, and of course, you could always rewatch the show a little later on to understand where we're coming from with the eye opener, just in case you catch it there at the tail end. But we've got a wonderful program lined up for you. That is what we do here at Channel 5, and especially here on Open Your Eyes. For this morning, speaking of learning from things, what COVID-19 have done, especially to the educational aspect of growing up, especially right now, things have changed. So what we need to do is that we need to adjust, especially to things that have changed. So we'll be having representatives in from St. Catherine Academy. They'll be talking about adjusting to the impact of COVID-19.
All right, and that's from the teacher's perspective, and then we move to the parents. Parents, just some things that you want to consider, how to talk to your children during the pandemic. How do you explain to them what's happening? Well, you don't have all the answers. How to deal with the frustrations as well, because let's just be honest, this is a lot of time, a lot of tension, a lot of different emotions that you're having, what you can do to really help them cope during this pandemic.
Definitely. And in the third segment, Marty, the question is for you. Have you ever picked a fruit or a vegetable from a garden or from your backyard?
Yeah.
You ever done that? You done it?
I have a mango tree. It's
What about a fruit? I mean, what about a veggie? What about a veggie? What about a veggie?
No, I haven't. I don't think so.
I tell you what, that is one of the greatest feeling that you planted this,
Uh-huh.
you reap from it, you cut it up, and you eat it. Oh my goodness. So, in the third segment, we'll be talking about beginning a backyard garden. Like we mentioned, COVID-19 have changed a lot of things, but there's so many good things coming out of it as well, and a backyard garden is definitely one of those. So, we'll be joined by somebody to tell us all about how to get a backyard garden started.
That's right. And we close off with another edition of Kids Time. Parents, remember, this is the time that you get the kids in front of the television and you are guaranteed that they're going to be entertained and educated. Today, Dr. Binox is going to be teaching us about the type of stars.
Cool.
It's great for the weekend because they can show you afterwards. So you want to look out for that segment at the closing of the show. We're going to go ahead and take a break, but before we do, we got our birthday shout out.
Oh yes, we want to say a big, big, big happy birthday to none other than Jasmine Palacio. Happy birthday to you, coming from all of us here at Channel 5. Your
You know when you have a
family.
shared last name, you have to say no relation or my family.
I don't know, I think Palacio, Alawida family. Hey fam, happy birthday, man.
Now you're a true Belizean.
Happy birthday, coming from all of us here at Channel 5. All of us right here on Open Your Eyes.
All right, now we'll take that break and we'll be back in a few. Please stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We're now moving into our first segment for the morning. And like we mentioned earlier this morning, Marlene, about COVID-19 and some of the changes that we've made. And education is definitely one of them that have changed. And so we've got representatives in of St. Catherine Academy to talk about this, adjusting to the impact of COVID-19. In to talk to us, Janine Cattouse, who's an English and literature teacher at St. Catherine Academy, Denisha Grant, IT teacher right there at St. Catherine, and the principal herself, Salome Tillett. Good morning, and it's nice to have you guys.
Good morning, and thanks for having us.
Morning.
I'll tell you what, the energy from you guys it's a very nice one, and so that simply means that the updates from you guys definitely will be something positive and touching to the entire nation from an educational standpoint. So I would like to start by talking about the whole COVID-19 impact and the type of impact it did on St. Catherine Academy. So let's start there, Ms. Principal.
Okay, good morning, and a special good morning to all the parents, students, friends of St. Catherine Academy, and of course to entire Belize.
Okay.
COVID-19 was one of those unexpected things that had us learning how to do things differently in a short time. We didn't have the luxury of time, of anything other than in the moment, how do we come out of this better? How do we make the most of the challenging time? And for us, it meant moving online quickly.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we had some practice with it. We were a part of the DigiLearn project in the GAP and Ministry of Education. So we had our first and second year students already doing some online learning.
Okay.
But we had to move that off campus as they were doing that in class. The teacher could walk around, could check, the technician could run if you couldn't get something going. But it meant moving everything online and first through to fourth. And so the teachers can tell you there was a lot of scrambling to learn and a lot of reliance on each other. It was like learning community. The teachers themselves were in the classroom or teaching each other. How do you do this? How do you do that when you want to upload a video? It was fun to me to watch them learning and sharing. How do you raise your hand? This was a fun one. How do you get students to raise their hand? They're all in class. How do you know who wants to ask a question?
Yeah.
And of course, the techie people say there's a raise your hand feature somewhere that you could press or the student can press. So
Yeah.
it was.
You know, I reflect back on when you guys have an interesting model, because as you said, you were a part of the DigiLearn project. And when the scare of the pandemic kind of started to set in here in Belize, you jumped into test mode. You decided that you would test out learning online with your cyber days. And I remember talking with you about that. And it was fascinating to see how your teachers were very excited about this process. You know, if you think of the benefit of having had those test runs, I mean, what kind of impact did it make?
Yeah.
For sure, it gave us the confidence to move completely off campus. It helped us to establish protocols because, you know, day one, everybody was excited. And then we realized, wait, this one is in her pajamas, that one is in, you know, and we have to have some rules.
Yeah.
And then they had fun muting the teacher. And then this one, you know, we had to say, wait. This is not free for all.
Yeah.
These are the rules that we have to abide by. You have to have on proper attire. You have to comb your hair to come to class, even if it's at home. You have to, you know, and we also set rules for the teachers to help them to ensure that there was structure for the classes. But it certainly helped that we had been planning for it ahead of time.
Yeah.
So you have developed classroom management protocols
Online.
for online.
Oh, yes, because remember, a lot of times the kids are a little bit ahead of us. So the teachers will tell you, they would be talking and the kids are unmuting, and then you get a little snippet of the video and the kids are they're dancing in the room while the teacher is teaching.
Yeah.
And so we had to say, wait. If you do this, it's a classroom.
Yeah.
Rules that apply in a classroom apply at home.
Man, so how do you go to no chewing? But I'm just kidding there. But you know what? One of the things, like, I could reflect back to my high school days, and the first 10 minutes of following the ringing of the bell was always homeroom session. And within the homeroom session, there was a discussion on what had happened yesterday, or if it's a Monday, then we spoke about how you spent the weekend, just to loosen up the students within the classroom. Is that happening now? And what are your students saying? When you get that, let's have an open discussion. How do they feel about what's going on right now?
Well, I will answer the first part of it, and maybe the teachers can also add in.
Sure.
Our model is the synchronous model. What that means is that at 8:30, the teacher and all the students log in. So we have the first 20 minutes thereabouts being a wellness check-in. We pray together, we start our day with, it's like building community. Let's be together. How are you? How was last night? How is your day?
Yeah.
So we do check-ins, we do prayer, we provide the same structure. And then the classes run for half an hour, again synchronous, teacher and student online.
Okay.
The teachers have the option of doing some asynchronous classes where you just post the video and you give the student 10 days or 5 days to get the work done. Do the video and get the work done.
Okay.
Our choice was to keep community by having everybody together so they could chat, because you know what we find, the young people miss one another. They miss their teachers, which they didn't think they would ever do. But they miss their teachers. They miss school. They miss that person that used to annoy them, It's like everybody is apart. And so we wanted to give them time together. And then in addition, we've also added a wellness section. So we have our counselors on board, our PE teachers, so that they have, and our student council. So there's a fun session in there. There is a exercise session. There is a
lovely
wellness part of it, whether it's mindfulness or prayer, meditation, a little stretching, a little self-esteem building. So, try to cover all the elements that are absent by the distance between us.
I appreciate that you said that, because I do think that part of the school experience, and we perhaps only think of it with the littler ones, but it's the same with teenagers, it's actually being with friends. It's the hangout at recess and lunch and cafeteria dramas and whatnot. And for the teachers, talk to us about what you have found in terms of the mind frame of the girls. What have they been saying in terms of what this experience is like for them?
Okay. Okay. Miss Grant?
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning with your nice background. Marlene just posed a question. You care to respond to it?
Sure. In terms of the overall response by the girls, in all honesty, at first, most of them were eager. Online classes, this is definitely something new, a new experience. I recall specifically my third formers, when they heard online classes, because for our first, one of our first cyber days, they were involved. And so they came back to me, because I'm their homeroom teacher. They came back the next day and said, "Miss, that was fun. I can't wait to continue doing that." They said basically they had some issues, with their devices and what's not, but the overall response, they definitely enjoyed it.
No.
Fast forward to today, I see that a lot of the girls are still, attentive. They're still eager to join the sessions. Most definitely, we're always eager to continue learning. But, it's that time of the school year too, have to take into consideration.
Yeah.
And we do find that some, they're at the point that, they're a bit tired. They're a bit, I can't say really overwhelmed, because the way we have adapted the our syllabus is that we basically pay attention to content, no assessments or anything of that sort. So it's basically trying to get the information across to the girls in the most efficient, most creative way possible, so that they, first off, definitely want to join the class session, and then secondly, that that they continue to receive the content that they will need for the future years.
Yeah, yeah. And have you found, because it's interesting, these teenagers, they've grown up in a completely different time than the rest of us. Have you found that some of them thrive better with online learning?
Most definitely, because I know I've seen how, as Ms. Tillett mentioned, many of them are even more tech savvy than the teachers themselves, that find out different ways to do things. By all means, they're able to manipulate the computers to the way how they want to utilize it. So even though I teach them IT, I find out that they do stuff differently than me, and find that some ways are even more efficient than what I may be using. So I definitely, when I find stuff like that out, I definitely, applaud them, thinking outside of the box, getting stuff in the most efficient way, because that's my mantra to them. Always get stuff the best way possible, but, as efficient as possible as well.
There are a lot of students who prefer to get the practical side of things, and having a device in your hand is basically the practical way to you deal with it in a practical way at trying to manipulate it here, manipulate it there, which leads me to jump on to Ms. Katus, because doing English and literature, it's totally different.
Yeah.
It's about reading, it's about speech, it's about these things. So you're not able to get a device and then press this, press that. It's more hands-on. So, Ms. Katus, let's venture there. How is it for you as a English and literature teacher having to deal with these girls in this change?
Good morning again. It's been quite a task, quite eventful, I must say. In the classroom, we always struggle with having our students engage in reading. It's always like a power struggle with them. Generally, students just don't like reading. We even have adults that don't like reading. And so it's always a task to have them become engaged, or have them learn how to read independently. Yes, we have our discussions in class, but then they need to have the background information. I'd like to say, though, that with the use of the technology, I think it makes them more inquisitive, because they now have the resources online. So if there is a question that is posed regarding a certain text, they can Google the information. And what happens is that when they Google the information, they're learning how to access credible information. In addition to that, they're also able to cite the information, or cite the website from which they have accessed that information. So they're learning as we're going along. It's not only about reading, it's also about accessing credible information to support what they're saying.
That's really progressive way of looking at it, because I think parents are probably thinking, oh, but that means they're cheating. But really, that is a skill set that we do need, where people can be able to know where they can find reliable information. It's also important, I think, that you talk about how you manage the group online. I know you use a platform that really allows for a lot of interaction, and you can be able to see who's attending, who's participating. But what has been perhaps the most unique feature that you have found beneficial?
Well, initially, the platform of the Microsoft Teams, we didn't have any option for students to choose a feature that would allow us to see who wants to answer a question. So at the beginning, it was a bit of a weakness on the part of the system. Students would generally just talk all at once, and so that would create a situation of chaos in the classroom.
Yeah.
But recently they have actually added that feature so the students are able to raise their hands to answer. But of course, there are always that group of students who want to be engaged in the classroom, who sometimes just want to take over the classroom. And so it's imperative that we ensure that all students are being engaged, all students are taking part in the discussion. And so that is where we come in and we identify those students who we want to hear from. And generally, once you call on them, they're there to answer.
Yeah, yeah. Now, let me shift back to the principal for a second, because I want to talk about how you use this experience or share this experience with other schools. Clearly, St. Catherine Academy is ahead of the curve in having been able to prepare for this moment with your cyber days and been able to kind of move over what seems to be seamlessly to online learning at the high school level. What's the communication been like with other schools?
Well, through the Belize Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, we've been working in different committees. We have schools that are no-tech, who have to do the paper schoolwork at this time. We have the low-tech schools that are a combination of a little bit of paperwork, and some classes are able to do online learning. And then we have the high-tech. And so we divided ourselves into groups and share best practices. So if I am in a high-tech group, then I work with the other schools. Remember, there were 8 schools in the DigiLearn project. And so we've been able to share best practices with each other. And certainly, I think we all want all of us to be at the high-tech position. We don't want any student to be left behind. And so this is a part of what we've been working at. How do we make the most for the students who are disadvantaged right now? Our students are fortunate. But we want what they have for all the students in Belize. And so it is to share what we can. We are not sure with the economic impact of the COVID-19 whether the DigiLearn project will be able to be expanded to other schools. But certainly the students still the need is still there, and perhaps even more pressing. And so we want to get as many schools on board. I think we will see devices being an essential part of the book list. You will see now schools are requiring students, if they can, or even supporting students to get tablets, because at the minimum you need something that you can get work done at home. I think there will be a need for an expansion of the internet services to rural areas, to all the homes, if that's what our students will use, or at least to community areas. So if there's a community center in a village, so if that place has internet, that students can come there and learn, bring their device and at least access internet. So it challenges us to think differently. And then we have August coming. What will we do different August to prepare for what's ahead?
That's a question I definitely want to get into. But before that, have you been able to ensure that all children have access?
Yes. And Marlene, there is a government assistance to all secondary schools in the form of SAN and SEN. It is a financial assistance to schools for students who have special academic needs and for students who have special economic needs. And it's a sizable sum of money, I would say. It certainly would allow a school to feed a student, to help it with uniform, with books, with fees, with school bag and other equipment. So what we were able to do was to use that fund to assist the students who did not have tablets.
Oh, wow.
So we ensure that all our students who didn't have a tablet and requested one got a tablet, or it may have been a laptop, depending on what the parents were comfortable with. It's either a loan, the equipment is a loan, but if it's damaged, you pay for it. Or it could be, some parents said, well, could you assist us with a laptop? We will pay you over a period of time. We worked with that. And like other schools, not only SC, I'm sure, other schools, we assisted students with MiFi, with data. for the MiFi, with data for the laptop, with internet in the homes, because we didn't want any student to be left behind.
Yeah.
So if we are saying we are a high-tech school, then everybody has to be a part of that. And so with the assistance of that fund from the Ministry of Education, we were able to ensure our students were at least able to. No, they might have other challenges. Maybe today the internet isn't working, the computer doesn't want to come on, the internet services drop in my area, other little challenges, but they have what they need to at least be online most of the time.
Now that's an important point. I think hearing that the school has ensured that there's equitable access to education is really good to know. But let me go back. I think I'm trying to remember the date when the ministry discussed what should be the way forward. You were already doing school online before Easter and during the lockdown and state of emergency, and you continued through. Now we know, according to the ministry regulations, essentially what Ministry of Education was saying in allowing people to matriculate, it was only a suggestion to the secondary schools. It was left up to your own individual policies. How have you managed with your decision in terms of who's going to matriculate and who is going to graduate?
Well, we have a team. We've always had a policy that we believe you can do it. We will believe in you even if you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Because all the kids are intelligent, they're able, but they not always want to work. They're capable, but not always as willing, right, teachers? So sometimes you have to push and pull, and we get our parents to support us with that. And what we have done is to say, you will have, if school had closed then and you would have failed, we will give you additional opportunities to revisit the work you weren't successful with. And if you do your part, then your grades can improve. So it was, I think when the parents and students felt that there was an opportunity, they all came through. So let's say we would have had maybe 5 students, 7 students who were lagging behind the 70% pass mark. We said to these students, you have another opportunity to get the work done. You can do it over, you can do it better, you can improve. It's up to you. If you don't do it, you will not succeed.
Okay.
But if you choose to do it, you may. And we found that our students did so. We have all of them across the finish line for senior year.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's beautiful. Congratulations to you guys.
And what happened with things like parents' night,
And
prom,
graduation,
and
yeah.
graduation? Those are all such important rites of passage for coming out of, I mean, I know we can't have mass gatherings, but you guys are pretty innovative, right?
Oh, we have something fun in store.
Yeah.
We have
Sweet.
something fun. And I'll just say one little thing. It may involve Channel 5.
Wow.
I think Channel 5 is a part of it, and I'll leave it there for now.
But prom is canceled though, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Prom
those
is
poor
definitely
girls.
cancelled.
But one of the things,
Unfortunately.
one of the things that's going through my mind is the interactiveness of a student in the classroom, because going up again, as long as you're being interactive, you're showing that, you know what, you really want to be a part of this. You really want to do it. It's not often that you're going to get it, but from the mere fact that you're participating, gain you some points, especially if you're shaving along the lines of a 69, 70. Just saying, because it's possible. So especially for the teachers, how are we dealing with the interactiveness of students, especially while we're doing things online? How is that for you?
For my classes, I usually start each class with an attendance check. Just to, it's a form, kind of online form that they fill out. Just a selection of basically a multiple choice to see if they're present for the day. And throughout the class session, I use different online applications where my students are randomly called on. So they have different icons. See, okay, on my screen, their name is popping up. They see questions in a bit of a different format. They have recently integrated the raise a hand feature, so the girls are enjoying that for right now.
Yeah.
Because before, I used to have them type in the word question if they had a question of that sort, but now everybody is speeding to raise their hand before the next person to see if they're able to answer the question.
Yeah.
So I use a variety of ways to actually, to make it seem that it's just not an online session. It's not just a class.
Yeah.
Our sessions are 30 minutes, but honestly, for most of my classes, I don't see where that time goes because it's like we're in there, we're engaging, and by all means, that 30 minutes feels like a 10 minutes the most some days.
Wow. I'll tell you what, it's so nice to know that they're being interactive. And I almost wanted to ask you who learned the raise your hand feature first, if it was you who taught them or they taught you, because they're so good with technology. But besides that, I want to go back to the principal and let's venture off with the conversation of the CXC. We know that CXC, it is going to happen this year. So how are you going to make that approach, or what approach are we taking towards that?
Okay, well, we take our lead from the Ministry of Education. Certainly, Belize has a different outlook on CXC because it has different currency. In the other Caribbean territories, there is no fail. So as long as you pass through the high school and they determine who are the good students or the brightest students, if I could use that term, by how many CXCs you pass.
Okay.
In our system, it's different. CXCs is primarily used to determine if you will get assistance into tuition assistance into junior colleges. And so for us, it's a little bit different in terms of that currency. So the ministry decided we would go ahead and participate. We've already paid. And most of the SBAs, which is a school-based assessment component, has been completed by the students before the lockdown. So we can participate in a limited way. I'm not sure the teachers or the students really like this format because it's a multiple choice format only.
Yeah.
And the teachers may be able to add, but multiple choice means it's either right or wrong, whereas the paper 2, which is a structured answer, means I could get half of it right and get marks. This way I could guess and get it right or wrong. The other part of it, I thought a little bit about. I read that item that the student from Guyana wrote, and I think about the mental challenge it poses to the students. So they were out of school middle of March. They didn't know if they should continue studying. Will the exam be held or not held? Should I keep studying? When do I stop studying? Or I just stop and then when do I start back? Because a lot of this now depends on them on their own. And so it kind of, there's a little mental struggle, I think, to decide how to get ourselves back in a readiness mode to study for a multiple choice only type question. But we have to think the students are resilient. They will rise to the occasion. They will prepare. CXC has Notes Master site that helps the students with multiple choice type questions. And so this is where resilience comes in, that you have to persevere despite the challenges and what may seem like short notice, but we go forward.
Let me just get some clarity. On average, how many CXCs did your students sign up for? Because there is a number of them that's paid for by the government, and then they have the option of taking additional ones.
Most students will sign up for 10.
Okay. And the government covers 6, I think?
Government covers 6. And if you pass 6, including math and English, you're assured of a tuition scholarship for your first semester. You could keep the scholarship by maintaining passing GPA to, keep the tuition scholarship for the other semesters.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, because I know that was a key issue as well. When schools closed, the parents started to ask if they could get refunds for things like that. But in fact, now the examinations will proceed. So how does that change what happens in the online classes now? Are you now shifting back to CXC preparation?
Well, we had not been engaging our seniors. Seniors are basically finished. Okay. So right now they need to be on their own studying. We are working with the undergrads, meaning first, second, and third forms.
Okay.
So the seniors have to be working on their own. The teachers are supporting. They're working with them, sending over past papers. I know Miss Grant is a senior teacher for IT and Miss Catus for English. So they are sending work home to the students, practice papers, but it's up to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, for me, let's talk about the enrollment for next school year. How is that going to happen? There are a lot of people who look forward to be a part of St. Catherine Academy. What do they need to do? How is that coming along for you?
Well, fortunately for us, our closing date for applications was right the week before the lockdown. So we had received all our applications and we were able to process it. We have completed the process for first form.
Yeah.
We did extend the deadline. We worked with, the request from the ministry. But at this point, I must say we are no longer accepting applications because we're still getting calls.
Uh-oh.
We are not accepting any more applications for first form. We have.
Have you sent out your acceptance letters yet?
Yes, we did.
Oh, that's always a great moment for parents.
So I'm eager to meet my happy students. It's always exciting.
Yeah.
The first farmers, they're like, "Ooh, we can't wait. I go to the store and I see little girls, they wave at me and I don't know who they are. And afterwards, they circle me and I figure, a 6 student thinking of SCA next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Just looking forward, there's a lot of uncertainties as to what the next school year will look like. What do you do? I know you have to take some of the guidance from the Ministry of Education, but have you internally started to prepare for what the classroom for the new school year in 2020 will look like?
Well, we've been doing research. We have a little team working at it.
Yeah.
We know, some basic things we'll have to do, like have more hand washing stations.
Okay.
So we will add 8 more hand washing stations on the campus. We think about the lunch, the cafe where usually there's the lines. We say, well, that will be out.
Yeah.
We will probably have to stagger lunch or have the students order and bring food to the classroom as opposed to having the lines by the cafe.
Yeah.
We're thinking about bricks. We're thinking about those classrooms that have AC. How will we manage with those? Do we keep on the AC if that's something that may be a concern? So it's thinking social distancing.
Yeah.
Some schools have even been thinking, abroad, they've been doing shift system to accommodate half the students.
Yeah.
Or, it's not far-fetched to think that only first and maybe fourth will come into school and second and third will continue online class. Anything can happen.
Wow.
Again, depends on what happens with Belize. We're so blessed.
Yeah.
That has been very good to us, but we prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's near impossible for you to have social distance or physical distance in the classrooms because of our classroom sizes. So it really is going to take a lot of innovation moving forward.
It certainly will.
Okay.
All right.
And what's your message to your girls, each one of you? They've been watching, and I'm sure, Ms. Tillett said it earlier, I don't think students think they're going to miss their teachers, especially at high school level, but I am sure they do. I'm sure the cheerleaders miss cheerleading, the athletes missed out on all the
Sports,
competitions. You guys have a number of activities you normally do that the students look forward to. So what do you say to them this morning about, staying positive and keeping up the good work?
Okay, I'll just ask maybe one of the teachers if they could talk about the fun things we are doing with our students right now.
Yeah.
And these two ladies here have in particular been a big part of it.
Ooh.
We have launched a quarantine series. It's a online talent show.
Whoa.
So they can tell us a little bit more about it.
They're being shy about
I
it.
know.
Let's hear how you're making sure the girls still have fun.
Yeah. I could call out Miss Catus.
Hey. So at STA, we pride ourselves in providing students or young ladies with a holistic education. Academically, we have been engaging them in the virtual classrooms. Spiritually, we always start our days with our morning devotions, and actually every class starts with a prayer every day. So for me, I thought that we had to tap into their artistic and creative potentials, and so we came up with the idea of creating this Quarantine 101 series where the girls submit videos of what they've been up to during this time, what talents and skills they have been developing. There has been a shift. Learning is no longer taking place in the classrooms. We are now looking at learning at home. And so this was a means of us ensuring that we remain connected and ensuring that learning is indeed taking place wherever our girls are. And so this show has been taking place for 2 weeks now. We have an episode every Friday that just highlights the positive things that are actually emerging out of something that is seen as a bad situation.
Yeah.
Love
What
it.
are some of the stuff that the kids have submitted?
Baking.
Oh.
Quite a number of the girls have been very busy in the kitchen. We have some girls that have been engaged in outdoor activities, which is actually what we're going to be highlighting in the episode this week. We have so many talented young ladies. We have our artists, we have our singers, we have our dancers. So overall, it just has been a positive showcase of our girls. It's not only about grades, it's also about them developing other skills and talents as well.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Really good. That's really good. This is definitely the right step forward in terms of how we could learn, especially in times of COVID-19. Any final words? Lee?
John, it's always a striking feature, or it's almost something that is instinctive that we tend to dwell on the negative things, but we can actually look at some of the positive things that have come out of this situation. So
Definitely.
this show has been highlighting that, and the feedback has been absolutely great. I mean, the amount of work that has to be put into just a little 20-minute episode, it's quite a lot, but it's worth it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well said.
Oh.
Well said.
All right. So, and people can view that as well because you guys have it online. So if they want to see what the girls are up to.
Yes, it's uploaded on the school's Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. So everybody can access it. It launches it showcases every Friday. So at 6:30, you have something to look forward to every week.
Cool. All right.
All right. Closing message to your girls that are watching.
I just want to publicly express how much I miss them. It's always exciting to hear their voices every day. And sometimes some of them just ask you, Missy, don't miss us? And I said, of course I miss you. So we tend to think that teenagers aren't that loving and aren't that caring and aren't that appreciative of their teachers, but they are. But I just want them to remain steadfast, remain positive. This too shall pass, and we will definitely get through this together.
All right. And Teacher Grant?
Well, I express almost every day to my girls how much I miss them. All right, girls that I teach. In particularly my homeroom 3B1. Yes, I miss you. Big way up this morning. Hi, girl. As always, I just urge them to stay positive, help around the house, find innovative things to do, right? To not have that mental worry about, quarantine and COVID-19 and all of that.
Yeah.
Just something that you like to do and develop it. That's for me.
All right. And finally, Miss Principal Salome Tillett.
Well, I must thank my teachers. They are amazing. These ladies here represent a larger group of people who have built a team to work with our students. No student left behind.
Yeah.
Every student is counted. We miss them, and our team puts that into action. But you know, for me, who I still go to the office every day, the place is so quiet without the students. I miss them. The place is not the same. Girls, STA is waiting for you. It's not the same. It's too quiet. I know I used to say too much noise on campus, but oh, I miss the noise right now.
Oh,
And,
I didn't ask the most important questions. Do you still give out demerits in online classes?
Good question.
yes. Yes. But thanks to my team, thanks to my amazing parents, I think we have the best parents. They're so supportive of our efforts. Thanks to everybody who has done their part to make learning continue, to make it possible. Thanks to my school board and to the other schools who've been willing to share their best practices, that things that we've been able to learn and incorporate, you know, to keep learning going. So
Well,
it's been amazing.
We appreciate you checking in with us this morning and for us to hear firsthand what's happening there at St. Catherine Academy. I know one thing for sure, that teachers put in an extraordinary amount of work that oftentimes people don't know because they don't see behind the scenes. And we can see the fruits of that happening in the fact that you've been able to consistently provide education for your girls. Best of luck, ladies, and thank you for checking in.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So that was an excellent conversation, but I'll tell you what, while these girls are at home and they need to be online in their online classroom, they've got parents. So we'll be talking in the next segment about parenting during COVID-19. So stay with us. We'll be right back with more Open Your Eyes.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems. Our Fulltech family remains your trusted partner in providing the cutting-edge tools for remote working, e-learning,
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes on this cool and lovely Wednesday morning. We're now moving into our second segment for the morning. And the second segment involves parenting. Parenting during COVID-19. Now, in to tell us more, we've got Diana Shaw, who is the Executive Director at the Child Development Foundation. Miss D, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Belize. It's good to be here on this beautiful Wednesday morning.
I'll tell you what, it's nice to see you, and it's so lovely to get that energy from you as well.
Awesome.
All right. So let's jump start it. You know, there's so many things going on right now, and this is definitely one of the hardest hit that we feel, especially in this generation. It's going to impact generations to come. But right now, there are parents who maybe are not able to cope with it. There are parents who probably could cope with it better than some. But we want to get everybody on an equal playing field in terms of how to deal within the home. Let's talk about parenting during COVID-19. What are some of the struggles that we're seeing right now, and how do we move on?
Well, we're hearing from parents that one, the biggest challenge that a lot of our parents highlighted was trying to be teachers and parents. That's been a huge challenge for many parents. At the beginning of this, when it started and children were sent home from the 20th of March. So much earlier than businesses started to close and that kind of thing. And many parents were struggling to figure out how to have activities throughout the day that would be balanced to ensure that children completed schoolwork and children also got in appropriate time for play and nutrition and those kinds of things. We have very varying parenting capacity amongst our parents. We have some parents that are more experienced. We have some parents that have less experience. We have some parents that have language barrier challenges.
Yeah.
We have some parents that didn't finish school.
Yes.
So that has been a hard adjustment for them. And they have been getting more support now. Now that we are further into it, we have had more support from teachers and from other parents. We have done some live sessions to help parents as to focus really on being a parent. Because what we have really emphasized to parents is that you really aren't a teacher. And unless you have some training background, you're probably not going to become an excellent teacher in 2 months. So take the pressure off yourself. And focus more on supporting the child, because there's a lot happening with children emotionally and mentally during this time that we have to be really careful to support and to ensure they get through this well.
That's such an interesting perspective, I think, what you shared there, in looking at challenges parents may face. When you talk of the language barrier, for example, that would be a very real one. Sometimes children have parents that only speak Spanish, but they go to a school where they learn in English. And definitely looking at the education level of the parent themselves. But there's also another dimension, and it goes beyond just parent and child. It's about the gender disparity in terms of looking at who is doing the work. And this is not an indictment. It'd be better if John mentioned it, because I'm sure he shares the same sentiment. But really and truly, children just naturally tend to gravitate more towards their mother and want help from mom. And so mom has to help with schoolwork, but she's also preparing meals, and she's also doing her own work from home, and also has to take care of her own mental health. And it is a lot to balance all at once.
Yes, and this is a huge challenge, because every time there is a disaster, this disasters highlight this, that there is definitely gender imbalance and gender disparity in how we do child rearing. And a lot of the child rearing burden falls unreasonably on women. And what this has done is it has really amplified that, because in other situations, even a hurricane, women would still have had the opportunity to connect with extended family members and grandparents and support around them. But the COVID response required lockdown and isolation. And so a lot of single parents were not able to tap into those extended mechanisms. And that placed an added burden on single parent mothers, especially to be able to parent and teach and do all the cooking. And if they have very young children, all the cleaning and all of what that entails. So it has been a tremendous emotional burden for many parents, especially women. And we have single parent fathers as well who have had to shoulder that burden.
Yeah.
But what it's really showing us is that we need going forward to really see how we can improve parenting capacity and build resilience in parenting to overcome hard times.
Yeah. And even parents with multiple children, because that's what's most complex when you have a lot of kids in the house.
Yes, and then we are coming from the situation, and this is what we have been very careful to highlight. Parenting is not happening in a vacuum. Parenting is happening in the midst of life. And so while we are expecting children to be supervised and supported, we are looking at parents who may be in domestic violence situations. We are looking at parents who have trauma issues that they have been dealing with before this happened. That did not disappear because of COVID. COVID made those things worse, amplified the vulnerabilities and the cracks that were in family dynamics.
Yeah.
And so that's an added strain, and we are seeing coming out of this that there's going to be a lot of mental health needs to deal with depression and anxiety and frustration and some of the family dynamics, the pressures that have come on families. Some families are cracking and some of them will break up, and we are going to have to help people with recovery.
Yeah. You know, I'd like to add to the reality of the situation at this particular point, especially within families who are less fortunate. Mom and dad are at home. There's no job. You don't know where the next meal is going to come from. So the conversations start, and when the conversations start, things get testy, and that's where we start to blurt out words that are very non-essential. But at the same time now, it boils down to a conversation of the style of parenting that we're supposed to, or that would be carried out at this particular point. What are your recommendations right now for this style of parenting, especially if you've got little ones? You've got your 2-year-old, you've got your 5-year-old, I've got a 10-year-old, and my goodness. But so what
You didn't my goodness, what? Finish it.
It's tough because they've got their own mental capacity going on. They've got their own things
they're
going
dealing
on.
with issues just like you.
Yes.
So what we have said to parents, a lot of our parents in the Caribbean come from very authoritative parenting backgrounds, and a lot of times our default parenting style is how we were parented. And there's a lot of rules and strictness and structure. But when you go through times of disaster and upheaval, it's very difficult to maintain those rigid kind of structured parenting. You really have to become more flexible as a parent for your own mental health first. And then also for the well-being of your children. So we have been talking to parents about being more transformational type parents. Focus on the end goal. What is the long-term outcome that we want from this? We want to have children who are emotionally stable, children who have good memories about this time. When they look back at this time 10, 12 years from now, what do we want them to remember about this time? Do we want them to remember us putting them to sit down for 4 hours trying to learn multiplication tables? Or do we want to remember us making a meal together as a family? What are the memories we want to build? And so we have been really pushing parents and encouraging them to focus on the end goal, focus on those kinds of things.
Diana, if you could just say that again, that flexibility, because I hear it, and I hear it from people who were parents. They're so worried that they're not putting in enough time with the kids, or they're watching too much TV or on the tablet and all these other things, and they're taking on this emotional stress. And yes, there's never been a parenting manual, but after a certain age, you've had a routine with your children, and now there's no routine and no definitive end in sight. So this takes the parenting in a pandemic. No one knows.
It's different. You can't do regular parenting. So you have to become more flexible with your expectations of yourself as a parent. You have to become more flexible with your expectations of the child and what they can accomplish. You have to become more flexible with chores and the routines that you can establish. And as I said, focus more on the end goal. So for today, what's the one thing we want to accomplish today? All right, maybe for today, we're just going to get the beds meal. Like we just, if we get that done, we're not going to worry about the rest of it.
Yeah.
So you have to set those kinds of goals, because otherwise you become very stressed trying to fit to this rigid pattern in your mind of what should get done. And that makes it stressful for children because they feed off your energy as a parent.
Yeah.
And when they see that you are overworked and frustrated, then that makes them anxious. And then they become they give more behavioral challenges, they become more, their anxiety leads to more attention-seeking behavior, and then that makes you stressed, so it becomes a vicious cycle. So you have to become more flexible as a parent with your expectations, more flexible when it comes to chores, and definitely you have to monitor how you discipline, because you have to be very careful that your frustration with the situation does not feed into how you're disciplining your children, because they are not responsible for COVID-19. They have not caused your job to, put you on half pay. They have not caused any of that. But you are already frustrated about those things. So you have to be careful when you're dealing with behavioral issues that you separate your own mental anxiety, your own frustration from the actual issue that is before you that you're dealing with the child. And sometimes you may have to take a step back and calm down before you can deal with the disciplinary issue. Maybe you have to say to the child, okay, this is not okay, and we're going to deal with it, but Mom is going to take a half an hour, and then we're going to come deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly okay.
This brings us back to what your core is as the Child Development Foundation, looking at things. I know you have a heavy emphasis on things like sexual abuse, but you do address abuse in general. And when there are so many frustrations, and when, children are children, they have so much energy bursting out of them. They're not used to being in the house all the time. They don't have friends to run around and get that energy out.
And that is stressful. That is stressful for children when they are not able to make their peer contacts and they don't have the support of their social networks. It's really challenging. It's hard, and a lot of times that shows up in attention-seeking behavior.
And then they're nagging, and then they want to snack all the time.
They want your attention all the time.
And they're in the
calling you every 5 minutes.
And they say, "Oh, I'm bored." And you as a parent, you're so taxed already, and you don't usually deal with them for what is it now, over 30 days?
Exactly.
Almost 2 months of.
It's a long time, and we haven't even gotten into summer yet. It's a lot.
So 2 months of having this all day, every day. The point I'm getting at is, Diana, is that, children in some families may be facing abuse as a result, because this is one of the triggers for physical abuse is usually when the parent is overwhelmed.
Yes, exactly. And that definitely has been happening. And so this is where we have been encouraging parents, when you're dealing with behavior challenges of children, recognize that you will have to let something slide. Like, you won't be able to correct everything that is wrong that the child is doing. So you try to tell the parent, if nobody's bleeding, if things aren't broken and nobody's in danger, sometimes you have to let it go. You have to figure out when is it that you need to intervene, and then you have to be sure when you're intervening that you are calm, you are not putting your frustration and your anger about the whole COVID situation onto the child, because that's not the issue at hand. We really need to be focused on the issue at hand. But we have also said to parents, if you have any opportunity of getting kids outside, it's really important. When we have disaster, when children are under stress, they need to release that toxic stress because it builds up. And one of the most important ways that children release toxic stress is in connection with nature. So they really need to get a chance to be outside. They need to be able to run around in the sun and play with the leaves and touch the grass. If they have animals, to play with the animals. And if you have a small home where you don't have that, this is a good time to even start like a garden with garden pots, something to give them some connection to nature and something to care for. One, it will keep them active and give you some free time. And two, it will give them that opportunity to release that toxic stress that is building up as they are worried about school and about their friends and all of those other things that you don't have answers for.
How much should you share with them? Because that's a key part. I know we always talk about how important it is to communicate with children. And when parents are overwhelmed, we feel, or adults, we just feel like, one, they're not listening when we may be venting to a friend or spouse on the phone or in person. But also, you know, we are not we have our own challenges in coping in this uncertainty. How much should we be sharing with the children? Should we tell them, you know, listen, mom is not working right now. We may not be able to buy as many snacks, so you can't be eating it all the time, or, you know, you're driving up the electricity bill. I don't know. Or why we couldn't get that pool that everybody has in their backyard. How much do you tell children during this time?
All right, so you have to balance it. It depends a lot on the ages of your children and their level of development and maturity.
Okay.
Some children are more mature and need answers.
Yeah.
So you have some personality types. Like I was growing up a mature, strong-willed child. I needed answers. When I was young, we had Hurricane Gilbert in Jamaica.
Okay.
And I wanted to know the whole story. Like I need information.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
But some children, that would be too much. So the parent, this is where as a parent, you know your child, and you may have different personality types. You may have 5 children and have 3 or 4 personality types amongst those 5 children. So you may give one child more information than you give another child. So that's perfectly fine, but you do have to balance what you share with them. You have to give them important details because you want them to know safety tips. So I always say to parents, it's good when you have these kinds of disasters to talk to children about safety and what we do during times like this to ensure that we are safe. Yeah. So you talk about you washing our hands, you know, covering your mouth when you cough, and then you tell them, so because it's a special time now where everything is hard for people and we have, you know, a lot of things that are happening, we also want to be careful that we monitor what we eat. We want to ensure that everybody has, we want to share with others, and then stretch everything that we have. That's all a part of the safety lesson, right? That's a part of our survival as a family. And so it's important for you to help them to see that. And even if you have very little, it's good for you to show your children that you can give a pound of flour to the neighbor or a pound of beans to the neighbor, because it helps them to see that we're not starving. Because as long as we can give something, we're kind of okay.
Yeah. But it also teaches that you give from what you have. That's a beautiful lesson.
You teach them about community, and you teach them that this is happening to everybody. And so when it will remind them when they want excess, when they want to snack a lot, then they will remember that there are other children who don't have, and that will help them to self-monitor.
Yeah, you know, I tell you what, there's nothing like the gratitude we get from sharing something, especially in these times. And I think that's one of the things that we need to pass down to our children, so they could feel that sense of sharing, caring when they give something. That's just a little there. But Diana, one of the things, especially in today's day and age, especially right now, as we talk about the parents are giving the children the opportunity to go on outside and play because it's very essential. They want that. They need that. But let's talk about some of the strength building measures that we could tell parents, because it is tough. Having the conversation in the household of what we're going to eat next, or how we're going to get that chicken so we could put on the table. Yeah. We've got 4 or 5 kids. We're stressing. We don't know if anything is going to come from a pantry, or we're not able to get some money from the family in the States, but we need to build that mental capacity that it will be okay, but I need to de-stress a little. Strength building measures. What are your advice on this?
So firstly, when we talk about strength building measures, we're talking about building emotional intelligence, building the emotional capacity of children. So the first thing that we said before, being flexible as a parent, very important. You don't want to overstress chores and responsibility. You want to build more quality time moments within the day. I say to parents, try to think of from the day begins. Try to say to yourself, what's one highlight memory I want my children to get today? Yeah. Because sometimes you have to plan that. What's one thing we want to get from this day? Are we going to do lunch together? You know, if it's just macaroni and cheese, we're going to make a meal together. This is also the time to encourage children's creativity. Yes. So if you are on a meal plan where you have to budget meals, this is the perfect time to introduce that creativity.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to force yourself to buy chicken when you don't have chicken, you say to your children, okay, so today we're just going to do adventure cooking. We're going to do camping cooking. So whatever we have in the pantry, we are going to try to put it together and make a meal. And I need all your ideas. You
Beautiful.
take the can of beans, and they're going to have some weird ideas. So parents, I'm going to tell you right now.
And that's where you let go of the rules.
Yeah.
You know, Diana, what you're saying, and I want you to continue it. It's so much more about the adult changing their mindset than the children adapting, because we're rigid. We think there's a right way to do it. You know, how dare me go into my pantry and only make beans and corn. But for the kids, if the setting or the story behind it is right, they're gonna love it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's
and they will make a good memory from it.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
You're labeling
Some of
it.
my best memories. I mean, Gilbert was so tremendously horrible, but I hardly remember the horrible pieces. I remember the meals, the creative meals that we put together with sausage and all these kinds of mix-up things that we did as with our parents as children. It became a real adventure. And then we sat on the floor and had meals like we were camping outside. It was very good. So you want to do those kinds of things.
Very good.
Yeah.
Make it an adventure. You know, you don't have to sit down at the table all the time and eat. Spread a sheet on the ground and have an indoor picnic.
Oh.
Because already that's telling the children you won't be having a structured meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. Nobody's expecting rice and beans and chicken on a picnic. And maybe you just have hot dogs. I mean, whatever you have, you eat. So think about ways of doing that so that instead of it becoming a stressful time, it becomes a memory. It builds and it captures a moment of unitedness, of togetherness for your family.
Wow.
Teaches your children that they can make good things out of bad situations, that they can utilize whatever they have for survival. Those are the kinds of things you want to pass down to children during this time.
And so, you've given such great recommendations.
I know.
You know, one of the things I think of is children naturally tend to internalize information. So something happens and they think it's their fault. You know, mommy looks upset, it's because of me. Daddy looks upset, I did something wrong. It's part of their development.
Yeah.
So when they don't go to school and people look scared about health and, you know, they think long term, they think people are going to die. The family members are going to die. So it is.
Yeah, that's a real fear they have.
Yeah.
So I say to deal with that, it's very important that you build conversations.
Yeah.
You have to have conversation moments with your children.
Yeah.
Think especially when you are not hectic about in your head about your own work and things that you have to do at work. Structure a time within the day, even if it's just 5 minutes, where you allow your children to just sit on a bench, sit on the bed beside you, sit on the floor eating, you know, a snack with you, and just let them talk about what they're feeling. So you may want to build a time at the end of each day where you talk about our high points and low points for the day. And you may ask them, so tell me, what was something good that happened today? What you remember about today that was good or encouraging, or what was challenging for you today? It's important to start to get them to talk, because that helps to deal with the internal issues that they're facing, and it will help you as a parent to identify what they're stressing about. Because if every day they keep talking about the same thing, then you know that's an issue that they're having a difficulty moving beyond. That's something that's really weighing on their mind. And then you may need to build some personal time with that individual child to talk about those issues that are affecting them personally.
And the exposure to some of the news as well. I mean, we're lucky, we're not talking about daily death toll, but if you're watching international news every day, it's a different story.
Yeah, so you have to balance that with your children. And you also have to balance internet and the time that they spend on devices. Because that also has been shown to actually lower what we call the good hormones, those things that make you feel good and happy. When you spend a lot of time on the internet looking at screens, it actually drains those things. So even if your child has to do schoolwork, monitor the time that they have to do that. You may have to do separate blocks of time in a day or do it the next day. Trying not to allow them to spend extended periods, 5-6 hours on a game or on a device, because that really drains those good energies that we need. It really drains that. And then that feeds into their anxiety and it gives less resilience when they feel frustrated and overwhelmed.
Yeah,
So you want to monitor that.
I tell you what, you're touching a serious nerve there, because there are a lot of parents right now who are at home. Daycare centers are closed. And they're so accustomed to that 8 hours being away from the child. So what they're doing right now is actually giving the child the babysitting tablet or the babysitting phone. You watch Diana all day, you watch this all day. And so these kids are actually just focusing on these shows. And it's the babysitting concept from the parent that's going on there. This is definitely something that we need to change. So while we're going through this parenting, this how to parent here, what are some of the recommendations you'd give to these parents who they find it exhausting to be taking care of the child for the 8 hours or for the 24, but they're good things to watch? Would you say that you would put probably some kind of show? Is there any recommendations from you?
Yes, definitely. Parents can find, because there are things that you want them to do. So there are some YouTube channels that have activities for children that deal with art and craft and teach them how to build things. It's fun and it's educational and it keeps them occupied, usually for an hour, 2 hours. So that gives you some free time. So those kinds of things, you want to encourage some of that. But what you don't want is just mindless activity on a phone or on a laptop TikTok for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Because as I said before, that definitely science has shown that over time it really drains the dopamine, those good hormones that you need to keep you uplifted and hopeful and those kinds of things. So
balance it out. That's the key thing. Balance it out. It's also a good recommendation to watch along with your child. Because then you can have conversations and it's actually interactive.
Absolutely. And because also parents have to be careful that even during this time, there are still people who are trying to harm children. You still have pedophiles and people that are trying to lure children on the internet. So you can't afford to just have your child playing games, internet games, without you monitoring what they're doing, right? That would be really unsafe because there are so many bad things that are happening that as a parent you have to monitor. So even if they're on their device, you should walk past a couple times, look at what they're doing. Even if you can't sit to watch it with them, you need to pay attention to what they're downloading and the things that they are involved in on the devices to ensure that it is safe. And that because some of the things look childlike, but this actually not childlike. So you are not child friendly. So you have to be very careful as a parent with those kinds of things.
Can I, before, my final question, Diana, is asking about parents being honest with themselves. It is 2 months since parents have been home with their kids, and, you know, we've said it. Some aren't used to it. Some have a lot of children, and they have competing needs. What do you say to parents about being able to know when they've reached a point that they have to ask for help? Maybe just one day where someone in the family helps with the kids, if they can, if they have that. How important is that? So that, because parents have to be mindful of their own mental health too.
Yeah, it's very, very important. I say that especially during this time, parents have to build some time every day for themselves. Even if it's just 10 minutes or 15 minutes, even if you have to lock up in the bathroom, or you have to give them a plant, and while they're dealing with the plant or bathing the dog outside, you just get some moments for yourself. It's very important to have that me time. And then when it starts to get overwhelming, and you know when it starts to get overwhelming, if as a parent, it starts affecting your sleep. You are not sleeping well, you're up late at night worrying about how you're going to provide for the children, or you're going to pay bills. You start to get anxious, you find that you don't have appetite, or you are overeating, or you become very testy and angry all the time with everything that the child is saying. You need to take a break. And it may be necessary for you to call a family member now that we can move around more, to say to them, listen, I just need for you to watch the kids for me for the afternoon, or for them to come and do overnight by you. Make sure it's a family member that you know will be a safe person for your children. And that your children will not be exposed to any abuse while they're with that family member and persons that are in that family member's home. But you do need to build those break times in. And if you have the capacity to go for a walk around the neighborhood, that's also good, as it helps you to remember that there's something bigger than you that's happening, that you are not alone in this. Sometimes when you just stay in your house and in your four walls, you get cabin fever. You start to emphasize everything in your mind because everything just seems so big and so huge.
Yeah.
Taking a walk outside, hearing people laugh in their homes, hearing children at play, hearing the birds, looking at nature, those things are things that help to ground us. They help to remind us that we are part of something bigger. We're not just floating here by ourselves. Times of prayer, times of meditation, those things help to ground us in the reality so that we don't get caught up with what is happening in our head. And it's very, very important that we build those self-care tools into our daily activities.
Okay.
All right. Well
Well,
said.
that was just so, I think that was unnecessary. It's so important that we talk about this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a lot of judgment that's passed around with parenting in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear that parents have that maybe they're doing it wrong or doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I think generally we just always want the best for our children.
Of course,
So,
of
Diana, you've just come in and given us that comforting pat on the back that what parents are feeling are okay, what they're struggling with is okay, and you offered some great tips
advice, yeah.
on how to get through this time. We really appreciate it.
Really, and finally for me, Dee, I'll tell you what, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely, thank you so very much as a father. Thank you so very much for the advice, and I'll tell you this as well. Tonight, camp food at my house.
Do it. Live those memories. They will be awesome.
All right, thank you so very much, Diana. Diana Shaw, excellent conversation there. Marlene, she touched some nail on the head there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, everything she mentioned is exactly could help in your household.
Yeah.
So this is why these conversations, they're very, very important.
And I think the next segment is going to give you even more ideas about what to do with the kids. We are talking about backyard gardening. We have Dr. Lyra Spang, who will be joining us live, and she'll be telling us all the how-tos, the do's, the don'ts. So it's not that you don't have a green thumb, so they say. She'll be able to tell us how to get it done. So that's coming up after the break.
In these challenging times, Development is working on achieving Goal 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is to ensure access to water and sanitation for all.
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We're moving on now into our third topic for the morning. I'm looking forward to it. And we had some wonderful topics coming up, and they all lead into each other. Now, this is definitely something that we're able to do. It gives you it's an extracurricular activity that's very beneficial. And it's to begin a backyard garden. Now, to tell us about it, we've got Dr. Lyra Span, who is an author. She's a farmer. She's a tour guide. She's everything. Doc, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing excellent inside the studio. It's always nice to have you.
Great to be here.
Definitely. And
But you always share such great insight
right?
about food and Belizean food. I just know I'm about to learn a lot right now. But before I get to that, Dr. Spang, let's just talk a bit. You know, there is the business side of what you do. You have taken the effort to study food and how it's tied to culture and our behavior, and you turn that into a business, a tour guide business. How have things been since the complete breakdown of the industry?
I think you could guess the answer to that one, Marlene. I'm here in Placentia, originally from Toledo, and as everybody knows, since COVID-19 arrived and we had to close our borders, tourism is taking a nap at this point. We're positive and hopeful that it's going to wake back up one of these days, but for right now, we are where we are, which means just waiting until it's safe for us to reopen our borders. And of course, encouraging now Belizean tourism. So if you're a Belizean that, you know, has the wherewithal to travel and enjoy your country, we really encourage you to do so, to support your local business owners. But in the meantime, I have joined a lot of other people in going back to what we did before. So here in Placentia, a lot of people have gone back to fishing. In my home district of Toledo, many people from Toledo work in the tourism sector and have left San Pedro, Kipacar, Placentia, and you know what they're doing right now? They're farming.
Sweet.
Some of the largest plantings going on in Toledo that has happened in years. Young people that haven't planted a farm in a few years because they were always away working in tourism, they're planting this year. So we're going to have a lot of production coming out of the country this year due to more people farming than ever before.
Yeah.
Do you find people just kind of doing it for self-sustenance, or they're looking to be able to offer to a wider market?
Well, specifically, I know the South best. So specifically in the case of Toledo District, I wanted to highlight a couple interesting things that have been going on.
Tell us.
There. So Toledo District produces a lot of beans, really high quality beans, but tend to be produced in a smaller scale, smaller individual farms instead of the commercial fields. Some of the best quality beans in the country are in Toledo District. A lot of those beans, those small farmers carry them across the border. They sell them in Guatemala. So they'll sell what they have, what there is demand for in Toledo, which a lot of people grow their own beans, so the demand is only partial, and then carry the rest across the border and they sell it in Guatemala. Well, now the border is closed. Even the unofficial borders, as it were, you can't get across, you know, legally. And so there has been, you know, over 25,000 pounds of beans that couldn't be sold. And so what has happened, there's been some really great initiatives. Actually, in preparation for talking to you guys, I was talking to a few different people down in the South who have been doing this. The Julian Cho Society, the Toledo Alcaldes Association, the Maya Leaders Alliance are out together with 41 villages. They are getting donations, purchasing beans and corn from the farmers not being able to sell across in Guatemala, and they are taking that and they are redistributing that to families in need. And so they are actually able to help the farmers make the income that they would normally make, and at the same time help out the neighbors to the farmer that maybe don't have a crop coming in, don't have as big a farm, or that they weren't farming because they were in tourism, and so now they need some assistance food-wise. So there's huge efforts around that. Also, Plenty Bees, which is an NGO, a farming NGO in Toledo District, has also been very involved with that. They distributed almost 10,000 pounds of beans as well. Again, most of the beans that they purchased from farmers, those were through donations. Some of those donations from abroad and also from our fellow Belizeans. Most of that, almost 10,000 pounds, they were donating directly to food banks. And so this is a way that the farmers of Toledo are helping to feed their neighbors and also to feed all people in need of a little help to get through this difficult time.
Yeah.
And I also want to take a quick minute to point out there are a lot of food banks and efforts that have popped up since this situation has arisen, knowing that we have over 25,000 people out of work. And I just want to remind you that even though things are opening back up a bit, tourism is still dead. And that means 25,000 jobs are still gone. And that means that we still have a lot of people that need some food assistance, and they're going to continue to need some food assistance. It's not going to disappear right now today, or, you know, the lockdown is over, everything fine now. That's not how this works. And so if you do have the ability to donate even $5 or $10, or to get a bag of beans to your local food bank, anything, I would really recommend and ask that you think about doing that. There are a lot of organizations and food banks. The ones that I know about are more in the south. There's also the Belize Emergency Relief Fund that's doing a lot of work in Cayo. They've also done distribution to PG, to Dangriga. They've reached over 4,000 people. They have a GoFundMe as well, so you can donate online that way if you're at home or even if you live abroad. Belize Emergency Relief Fund.
Yeah.
So I'm giving a little help. So I would say if you can help out, think about when to help your neighbor, because it's going to be a couple more months before tourism hopefully will get to come back on its feet.
Well, you know what I find? I find that right now people are very much aware that some of the farmers may have excess produce and they want to be able to help. We saw it with the Cayo farmers a few weeks back. So definitely it's great that you bring this out to our attention so that we know that we can focus our attention and try to get some of the produce for us to use as well. Because we know we're going to use things like beans, for example. How we have a Sunday dinner without rice and beans. But that's just one example. You know, I think that what we have spoken about in the past and what I hear from you as well is that in every challenge we find opportunities. There are the silver linings or the silver threads. And a part of it is that we're all looking to be able to figure out how we can go back to practices from before. And farming is definitely one of that. You know, they say it's meditative, right? Gardening or farming is also really good for your mental health. But you also know that you are kind of doing something to help to contribute back to the family and maybe even make some money as well.
That's true, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
And I think that brings in the community aspect. It helps to connect people.
Yeah.
So while
Have you just before we get into the do's and don'ts, have you looked at things like community farms? You know, this is a great concept. We see other places trying it where you kind of just develop one space where everybody farms in and anyone can get access from. Do you think something like that would work, like in rural communities or even in urban areas if we can find space?
Well, I mean, there's a number of different forms of community agriculture. You have, and this is something you'll see in North America, in urban areas where there's not a lot of land space. You have community gardens where people actually apply to get a plot of land. And when we're talking about a plot of land, we're usually talking about something quite small, like maybe, you know, something that's 4 feet wide, 10 feet long. It's just one garden bed. And they have a sign-up. Usually a lot of people want to get in, and there's usually a waiting list. And eventually, you know, when your name comes up, then you get assigned one of those garden beds, and you can cultivate it, take care of it, and plant whatever you want in your garden bed. Yeah. But that piece of might be the size of a city block. You know, so you may have several hundred of those garden beds. single garden bed is being used by one family to do some planting of their own. These are people living in apartments, people who have no land space at all.
Okay.
Not that to put containers on,
Yeah.
That's the format that I have seen. The other one, of course, is to have communal land that you're farming together. That certainly is possible to do, but keep in mind, especially if you're doing it not just for subsistence, but also to make money, the politics of that can get different. And
Very true.
the more people are involved, the more likely it is that there can be issues, conflict about what is going to be grown, who gets what, is everyone putting in an equal amount of work. You know the story about the hen that planted the wheat, and then nobody wanted to help her plant the wheat, and everybody wanted to eat the bread.
The bread,
That's
That kind of agricultural system. So if you decide you want to have, share land with friends and family and plant on it, you have to really have a clear agreement on what you're doing, to avoid conflict. Not to say that it can't be done, it definitely can, but it's something that you have to work your way through.
Yeah, so Dr. Spang, while we're in this pandemic, there are a lot of people who are at home, and we eat weed stuff every day. And for the most part, what we do is that we just throw away the seeds, we throw away the remnants, we throw away a lot of stuff, which we tend to forget that we could actually do compost with this. So what would you recommend, while you start your home garden? What are some of the things that are very easily to be grown and we consume every day?
Well, I wanted to start by saying the first thing you need to do if you want to start gardening, you're not really gardening now, is go take a look at your yard.
Okay.
You need to, let's assume you have a yard. If you don't have a yard, we'll chat about that because you can grow a lot of things in containers. Pigtail bucket will be your friend. But you'll have a little land access of some kind. Even if you are renting, I plant every place I have rented in Placencia, nobody has complained. I leave the yard richer than when I came in, so nobody has a problem.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind. If you rent and you think, I can't plant nothing because I don't own this yard, if you chat to your landlord or landlady, most likely they won't have a problem with you putting in a little garden. So that in mind. Don't feel like that will prevent you necessarily from doing something. But you want to take a look at your yard. Belize has a lot of different soil types. So like here in Placencia, the soil is very sandy, does not have a lot of organic matter in it, which definitely means you want to compost, and we'll talk about that to help build up the soil. Some areas have very clayey soil. Funnily enough, that's a very different soil type from sand, but once again, composting will actually make that soil better too. Yeah. Composting makes up the soil better. So that's a key activity we'll talk about. Otherwise, you want to look and see you have a lot of trees in your yard. If there is nothing but heavy shade everywhere in your yard, a lot of food crops, they need some sun. So you either will need to remove a tree, and be careful about which one you remove. You don't want to remove something delicious from your yard. Or maybe just branches off, prune back a little bit so you have some sunshine coming in. Those are things you want to take a look at before you start, just to say, where am I going to put my garden? You don't want to put your garden right underneath the mango tree. Not only do you have to tree, but the roots from the mango tree will grow right into your garden bed, and they will compete with your tomato or your okra or whatever for the nutrients there. They will take over the garden bed. So, you want to site it a little further away. If you have dogs or you have other animals that want to dig up in the garden bed, you might think about putting a little fence of some kind.
Fence it up. Yes.
Yeah. So then otherwise, as far as what to grow in your yard, we talked about this before the show, which was just saying what are the main things that you could grow that are really easy to grow and that will kind of cover your plate with some good food. So I'm thinking about different aspects of your plate, having some greens on your plate, which of course those are usually packed with nutrients. We don't eat enough greens often in Belize. Most of us know about kalalu.
Yes, it was in my mind. My goodness.
You go to Cayo, you hear about chaya.
Yes.
When you go to Belize, you don't really hear about chaya, which is too bad because chaya is very easy to grow, incredibly nutrient rich. And then of course, I have a little chaya tree right here.
Cool.
I grew up around chaya trees. I'm scared of them. My mom grew them. She still grows them up to now. So we ate it. But you actually have to be careful with chaya. Doesn't it have a sap that can irritate your skin?
Well, it depends on the person how sensitive you are to it. But
Okay.
if you're somebody that the sap does cause your skin to itch, and it can do that for some individuals, when you're picking the leaves, which it's the leaves that you're gonna eat, all you have to do is just put your hand in a plastic bag or something.
Okay.
Once you in it, you know, all of that is gonna go away. Also, some kinds of chaya in the wild have little stinging hairs on them, but there are about 5 different kinds of chaya.
Yeah.
And they call chaya mansa, which is the one people eat. It doesn't have those stinging hairs, so it's perfectly easy to just grab the leaf, pull it off. This plant here, I have just a stick of it. If I stick this in the ground, it will start to grow.
Sweet.
So, to grow chaya in your yard, I recommend go to your local market and just start asking the vendors there. Does anybody have chaya? Do you grow chaya? Eventually, you'll find somebody who has a chaya bush. Just ask them, you know, can I get a 2 stick of the chaya?
Yeah, piece of stem or something.
And I really recommend go to your market, man, because there are all the farmers there. They're very knowledgeable. If you don't know something, ask them. Often they're very happy to help out to find you a seed or a cut-in and share it with you. The farming and gardening community, we're all about sharing those kind of things. So if you want a cut-in of something or you need a seed, once you start asking around at the farmer's market or even your neighbors, you know, people are often very friendly about that. They can form some nice friendships in the process.
Yeah.
So if I pick this right now, I go outside and I just stick it in the ground. If your ground is hard and clayey, you know, and if it's dry because it hasn't rained, water it a little bit, dig it up a little bit, put it in there, and then pack the soil back around gently. You don't want to just leave it loose or else it will fall over. And you don't want any air pockets in the soil around it, because otherwise if it does rain, those air pockets fill with water, it'll actually drown the plant.
Yeah.
So stick it in there and you kind of pack the soil back around it and you just leave it, water it. If it doesn't rain at all, water it, you know, every couple of days. It will start to root and it will grow, and it will grow into a shrub up to 10, 15 feet high.
Sweet.
Yeah. So you got to control it a bit, right?
Yes, so you need a machete. If you're going to garden, even a little garden, get a small machete. Those are very handy. You can even use a machete like a shovel to dig with if you don't have a shovel. You can do a lot of things with that. And so when you're harvesting, you can also break the tip at the growing point off when you pick the leaves and it from growing more. But this particular plant, these leaves, this is what we call a Maya superfood. When we are selling this to our visitors, we tell them about this particular plant. It's native here in Belize and in southern Mexico and the Yucatan. It grows in almost every soil type. It is very, very tough. You cannot kill this thing.
Yeah.
So something you want to grow in your yard. These leaves are not edible raw. They have the glycoside compounds in them that are toxins. So you need to cook it. You grab this leaf, chop it up, throw it in some boiling water. You boil it for 10 minutes, and then after that, you can stir it up with some eggs. You can put it in with your stewed chicken. You can just, you know, cook it down some more, like you would callaloo or any other green, and serve it on the side of your plate. But this thing is just packed with nutrients. It has more calcium than any known vegetable on earth.
So you should boil it before you cook it, or can you just introduce it and have it cooked down with the food?
You can do that as well.
Okay.
So if you're stewing something or you're making like a chicken soup, for example, you could just chop this up, chop up the leaves, throw it in there. Once it gets cooked at least for 10 minutes, because that completely releases the cyanide compounds, and then it's fit to eat. I like to cook it longer than 10 minutes because the leaves can be a little chewy. They do need a cooking time to become more tender. But great in soups and stews, you do all kind of things with this. I have cooked this and then made like a pesto style thing, broken it up there.
It's a great local alternative to spinach too, especially if you don't like the taste of spinach.
That's right, as long as you're cooking it. The spinach we can eat raw, this cannot be eaten.
Raw. Okay. I've had chaya tamales before too. Very good. Then there's a chaya drink as well. So there's so many things you could do with that.
Chaya and eggs.
Yeah.
You go to Pop's Diner in Cayo, you can't miss the chaya. They have a framed chaya leaf on the wall.
Yeah. Okay, so the chaya is definitely one that people can, somebody who has no experience with gardening, it'll take care of itself once you're able to plant it down properly.
That's correct. And it will grow in partial shade. So if you don't have full sun, that's fine. It will still grow.
Okay.
And the soil it grows, it can tolerate some salt air. So if you live by the coast, you should still be able to grow it. If you live with bad clay soil, it should still grow. This thing is tough, man.
Yeah,
So
it is.
Go to your market, ask people, ask around, do you have chaya? Do you have a chaya plant? Can I have a stick from your chaya plant? And then you start with this. You blend this up with some coconut milk, garlic, and onion. It makes a great cream soup as well.
Sweet. You got this thing knocked down to a T, Doc.
All right, so let's go on to the other one. We learned about chaya.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna hit up the evergreen. You guys recognize this one?
Moringa.
Okay, so this is
Moringa has flowers? I didn't know
Is that moringa?
moringa. This is the flowers of the moringa. This is the
I didn't know moringa had flowers.
I got it.
Clearly, I don't grow it.
these flowers are edible, and the flower also will turn into a pod like a long bean pod.
Yeah.
When these are very young and tender, you can chop them up and cook them like okra.
Oh, lovely.
So the leaves are edible, the flowers are edible, the young pods are edible, and the leaves, similar to chaya, they are packed with nutrients. And in addition, unlike chaya, the leaves of moringa are actually a complete protein. That means they have all the amino acids necessary for life. That's very rare in plants. So you can actually get complete protein from chaya. This is why from moringa. This is why moringa powder has become so popular in Belize. And also, as a lot of people know, it can help to regulate your blood sugar level. So if you have diabetes, eating moringa leaves or using the powdered moringa
in your food or something.
Moringa leaves that have been dried and ground up into a powder.
Nice.
But if you grow it in your yard, then you have it right here. People make the moringa tea. You just grab some, you boil it in some water, strain it, and drink it, and that's your moringa tea.
Easy.
From cuttings, you can grow it from seeds. So you can get the dry seed out of a dried pod, plant, or you can get a cutting. The cuttings don't catch every time, but 85% of the time the cutting will catch and grow. The seed, you pretty much guarantee that it will grow.
Yeah.
And they're a tough plant from the foothills of the Himalayas. They can tolerate a wide range of soil types. They're very tough, and they can grow to a tree up to 30 feet tall. But you can take a machete, you can bring them down to 5 feet high, and you can keep trimming them back, and they'll be fine. And that way you can reach the leaves and so on.
You said that it was from the Himalayas. Have we always had moringa in our area, or somebody introduced it somewhere down the line?
Here. And there's some debate about whether it was brought over when the first East Indians came in the 1800s, or if it came over more recently. Some people say, oh, this was brought over as part of agricultural program or it's something to combat malnutrition. This plant has been introduced all over the world to combat malnutrition because you can keep chopping it back and it keeps growing back, and the leaves, you can eat this leaf right off the tree. And the young leaves, they taste a little bit like arugula or mustard greens. They're a little spicy. They're great in a salad. I take the very young leaves at the tip and I make salad with it.
Rich.
Oh, wow. But
And
that's
it's
good
easily grown. You stick that seed in and gone.
How do you keep it? What's the best way to grow it so that you can benefit from the leaves and flowers? Because moringa can grow into like an actual tree, like a huge tree.
Huge.
But some people prefer to keep it more as like a shrub where they have it more accessible. What's your advice?
Well, if you keep it chopped back to 5 or 6 feet high, it's not going to set pods.
Okay.
It needs to at least some of the branches be allowed to grow to their full length, and then because the flowers are at the end of the branches, if you keep chopping the branches back, it won't flower. But a lot of leaves, and the leaves are probably the most popular, the most commonly eaten part of the plant. So if you're looking for the leaves, it's the leaves that you want. can keep it trimmed down almost into a hedge actually, and then you could plant a row of it along your fence line and just keep chopping it back. You're going to have a lot of material. What do you do with the material that you cannot give away, or that you could even dry some of it and sell it if you like? If you don't want to do that and you have a lot of, branches and leaves left, you just chop them up small and you throw that into a corner where you want to make a garden bed. You let that rot down, and that's going to turn into nice black dirt that you can use to fertilize your plants.
All right.
Okay.
So
Easily grown. Yeah, I'll brag about it because I have one to grow right now too.
The chaya and the moringa, you're pretty much set for greens. You want to grow callaloo as well. That grows very easily from seed. It tends to grow almost like a weed. It just pops up here and there. You'll see it growing in.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And the seeds, the very fine seeds at the top of a callaloo plant, and you can just shake the top of the plant around, and small baby callaloo will start popping up here and there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, for a lot of people, it's recognizing that it's callaloo. How do you recognize that?
Well, I don't have a plant here to show you, I'm afraid, but that's our next one. Where ask your neighbor, ask the farmer. When you go to the market, you'll see people selling callaloo. You can ask around who have callaloo for sale, and when you see it, take a good look at it. And if you really observe the plant, you'll start to notice it's everywhere. It literally just pops up kind of corner. But it does need some moisture. In the dry season, it tends to die back out. But the chaya and moringa, they will go right through that dry season, even in the drought that we have right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they can be they don't disappear. Callaloo tends to pop up. It grows very luxuriantly, especially in the rainy season. You can keep cutting it back and eat those leaves, but then it will kind of die back. These two, you have them year round. Once you plant it, you're going to have it for years and years, decades, because these are more woody shrubs and trees.
Yeah.
So these are the easy greens to have in your yard. These two right here, chaya, moringa. So for the greens, I really recommend these ones.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right.
So let's talk about some of the veggies. Is that what we're going to tackle next?
I think we can definitely move on to that one. Again, we come to the farmers and your local market. Okay, people often ask, where can I get seeds? Now, if you live close to or near a town, most of the district capitals in Belize have some kind of farm center. Mm-hmm. They might have Prosser fertilizer, they might have Reinhardt seeds, they might have different shops that sell kits of seeds, and you can buy those. But you can also just take your sweet pepper that you have at home, and when you cut it open, of course, on the inside, you see those seeds. Usually you just pull those out and you throw those away. Well, you can take those same seeds. If you have, a little pot or even an old tin can, fill it with some dirt and put the seeds in the top, and then, cover it with a little dirt and then keep watering it, keep it moist. Those seeds will pop up and start to grow into plants. And those plants you can then transplant out into your yard.
Yeah.
Now the area where you want for a sweet pepper or a tomato, they like more sun. Here in the tropics, they don't have to have full sun because our sun is so hot. But if you put them where they're getting like half shade, they're not going to be as happy. So just a little bit of shade is fine. And they like rich soil. So if you don't have good soil, this brings us back to composting. If you have grass in your yard, you weed whack your yard, you rake up that grass, pile up that grass in the area where you want to have your garden bed. Mm-hmm. You can kind of dig up there. Even if the soil isn't good, just kind of dig it up a little bit with your shovel. Put that dead grass the grass clippings on there. In my house wall, I always compost. So I have my little container. This is my garbage container. When I'm chopping up tomato or onion to cook with, I put it right in there. Then I take it out to my garden. I dig a hole and I just throw it right in there and I cover it with the sand or with your soil, whatever soil you have. And that is what we call sheet composting. That's where you just put the material right where you want it. In the tropical environment, sheet composting is the easiest way to go. You just put it where you want it, let it roll, and it gets richer. So
and it's any organic garbage, right? So like your eggshells, your vegetable ends, the peels that you use, fruit skin.
None of that styrofoam, none of that trash. That won't break down, as we well know if you look at where you see your plastic. does not break down. So you don't need trash. What you want is kitchen scraps. Now, don't go and throw your chicken skin in there because what happens is the nearest dog will find it, or a raccoon, or an iguana. Dig it up and they'll make a stinking mess in your yard. So you want to stick with vegetable matter. It's much easier if you start like that. So if you have like a cucumber or carrot beans, or you have leftovers from chopping up some vegetables or the onion skin, that into the compost.
All right.
Take your water break. Yeah, I know we're sharing so much information. So that's how you would, if you don't have the good soil, that's how you make your good soil.
That's correct. So you have these scraps from the kitchen. They're what we call nitrogen-rich materials, very high in nitrogen. Same thing if you have like extra moringa leaves off the tree, or the fresh grass clippings that are still green from chopping your yard.
Yeah.
That is full of nitrogen. Now, let's say you get a couple bag of sawdust from the cabinet shop down the street where they make furniture, and they have that sawdust. You ask them, can I get a 2 bag of sawdust? They'll be like, yes, man, go through. Get that sawdust and you mix it with the grass clippings or the green leaves or the garbage from your kitchen.
Yeah.
That brings together carbon in the form of the sawdust and nitrogen. The carbon and nitrogen, you want that mixed together about 50-50, and that will rot down into some beautiful black dirt. Now, if all you have is grass clippings, that will still rot down. If all you have is sawdust, it will still rot down, but it will take longer.
Okay.
And the middle of it is hot, because all the gases, all the heat's just mixing up. It's amazing. We've got everything we need to move forward.
We definitely do, and even if you live in the heart of the city and you only have a tiny yard, or you just have a leaf veranda, go to your grocery store, get some pigtail bucket from the grocery store, ask them for the pigtail bucket. They usually charge $1 or $2 for the bucket. Poke some hole in the bottom with a nail, and then you put a couple of rocks in the bottom to kind of hold it down, and then fill the rest of it with soil. And you're good to go. You can plant a tomato, a couple sweet pepper in 1 5-gallon bucket, and once you keep it watered, and you keep an eye on it. When I'm growing something in a container like that, if I have a 5-gallon bucket and I have like a habanero plant in there, what I will do, I'll take this same compost right here, and I will just put a ring of it around the plant. Let's say you have a bunch of banana peel. You can put it around the base. Don't let that touch the stem, because as it's
going to burn it.
Gases. But you just put it around the edge, and then leave a little space or some around the stem. Rot down at that container of soil, because the soil in a container, it loses fertility quite fast. As you water it, some of the nutrients, they drain out at the bottom with the water. So you want to keep replenishing it, those little banana peelings and things around the side.
All right.
All right.
I'll tell you what.
So we're running out of time so quickly, and I mean, you're giving us so much information. I didn't know you can burn the stem of a plant.
Yes, the nitrogen would burn the plant. Yes.
There. But so let's get into some of the definite things as we wrap up. And I know you have so much more information to share. But what are some of the things that, for those who are intimidated, for those who are doubtful, but those who are interested, what are the things that you do want to do and definitely don't want to do? That quick list.
Okay, well, what you do want to do, talk to your local farmers at the farmers market. If you're feeling unsure about something, ask them. You see that they're selling something that you want to learn how to grow, they are growing it. Don't feel that like, they are not telling me because they think I'm competition. You're planting it in your yard. They're not going to mind. They're going to be happy to give you information, and they're very knowledgeable. So never be afraid to ask. But I cannot give you all the information in a short amount of time, but they can help you out. On Facebook, I know many of us do have that access. If you have access to the internet and you are going on Facebook already, there is a great group. It's called Plants of Belize. If you don't know about this group, Plants of Belize on Facebook, join it. There are a lot of very knowledgeable farmers, agronomists, botanists, gardeners that are members of that group. You go in there and you post a question, how do I grow an okra plant? 20 people will tell you how to grow an okra plant.
Oh, wow.
So I can't tell you that will give you a lot of help for anything you want to learn how to do farming, gardening, whether it's trees, bushes. And that said, I do recommend growing an okra plant. Okra is also a very easy to grow vegetable that you can in your yard. So a row of okra will keep you going. If you have room for one tree, plant a coconut tree. Because the basis of some of our best food is that coconut milk. That coconut tree can provide you also with your nice coconut water. It's a very, very good plant to have.
Yeah.
For some reason, you need to be living off of the food in your yard. The coconut is one of those essential plants. If you have room for it, you should definitely plant a few coconuts in.
Got 3 of those.
Okay. Is it hard to grow?
Nope. Okay, stick it in.
Coconuts, oh man, they grow themselves.
Okay, good.
You know, all you have.
Maybe that'll be the one I try. All right.
Now look, you coconut on your farm, and when they say yes, you say, okay, well, I want to get a young plant from you. I need to plant some coconuts, and they'll tell you, okay, what kind of coconut do you want? You want a tall one, a short one, you know?
Yeah.
So you can get a coconut tree. A dwarf makes it easy to reach the coconuts for coconut water.
Okay.
And you literally just take, this one is husk, right? You take the coconut in the husk, and you just loosen the soil a little bit, and you set it right there. And it will send that shoot up from that soft eye. It will send that shoot up, send the root down, and it will do its own thing. You don't have to do a thing. They're very
That's right.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
You know what, Dr. Spang? We got to get you back. We got to tackle the fruits because people love the fruits too. But we are out of time, and you've given us so much valuable information. We appreciate it so much. I love that you left us with somewhere to go afterwards. Plants of Belize.
Yeah.
It's a group on Facebook if you want to get more information. I'm sure people can also maybe harass you on your Facebook too if they have questions.
Plants of Belize group as well, along with thousands of other people from every district in the country, and each district has different soil, different conditions. It's a great resource.
All right, Dr. Spang, thank you so very much. Do enjoy your morning there in southern Belize.
You as well have a wonderful day. Thanks to you both.
All right, there we go. It was an excellent conversation with Dr. Spang. We need to get her back because we need to get into the fruits like you mentioned and get into everything nice that we've got in this lovely country. But we need to move on in our show this morning, and I'll tell you what, courtesy J&W, it's J&W Shopping Mart. It's time to present to you Kids Time. So get the kids in front of the television. Why? Because today, Dr. Binox will be taking us on a tour of the wonders of the universe and showing you the types of stars. So here we go.